There we go. So, yes, I am a really ignorant American, and I show it very regularly because I only speak English. So I apologize, but I can Google other languages really well. So hopefully this resonates. Hopefully you understand welcome in whatever language is appropriate, but it's wonderful that you're here. What I want to do just in the first couple of slides is actually do a little bit of sort of orientation for Startup Istanbul. There are a few things like the Twitter handle and the Facebook sharing. So please feel free to share, sort of whatever inspires you through this. I saw already a lot on the ferry, on the boat ride yesterday. There were some great pictures. So continue that and tag people that you're meeting and all of those fun things. So actually one other thing I want to make sure we do, because these conferences our hosts know this, and anyone here that hosts events like this knows this. They're really hard to put together, and there are some wonderful sponsors. Anything you can do while you're here to engage the sponsors, to thank them as a minimum, but also have conversations. There may be some ways that it makes sense for you to do business with them or to support them in some way. That's really important because that ultimately sustains events like this. None of this would be possible without the companies and organizations that support this event. So can we just give some love, some clapping for the sponsors? It's wonderful. Cool. So, all right. So our topic is pretty simple. These are the only 5 things I'm going to cover. So winning, bread, tribe, now, and options. So does everybody know where we're going with this? No, of course not, because it doesn't make any sense. That's sort of the point. And so what I really want to do is go through a process here to just talk a little bit about how to get the most out of events like this. Some of you were a part of the few webinars that I did that were preparation for this. So this won't really necessarily be redundant, but there'll be some reinforcement of that. And then I'll share a few observations that I've had of companies that have done, I think, really well and sort of navigated this minefield of getting started. I was at a talk recently. It was a venture capitalist who splits their time between the East Coast and the West Coast of the US. And I think he put it in a really interesting way. He said, yeah, entrepreneurship is difficult. All you have to do is try to spell the word, and you know that it's difficult, right? If you try to, it's just a long, complicated word. And so the real point here is that we want to sort of navigate this. For many of us, this is our first venture. Even if you've done it multiple times, it's still new and unique. And so hopefully this is helpful, but I would like to make this as interactive as possible. So if you have questions, please make sure to ask them. So the first idea here that we're going to talk about is winning, which is kind of a funny thing to talk about, and we'll kind of reframe this a little bit. In the idea, when we're at an event like this, what's winning? And so when we were doing the webinars, one of the things I heard a lot from people was, how do I win? How do I get first in Startup Istanbul? And so how many people would like to get first in Startup Istanbul? Well, I suppose, right? We're here. We paid for the plane ticket. Might as well get first. So the issue is there are 2 realities that we need to confront. The first is that how many winners will there be? Yeah, just one of 100 or somewhere near 100 companies. So, and this, just so you know, there were about 90,000 plus applications that came down to 100 companies here that will ultimately result in one winner. So it's probably not so good that 99 people go home unsatisfied. So if we stop there and that's how we define success, that's probably not going to be very satisfying. And our Yelp rating or whatever survey you fill out won't be very good at the end of this if 99 out of 100 aren't very happy. So we should probably reset our goal. So winning is good, and we probably ought to strive for that, but what happens if that doesn't happen? So there's one other reality that's important in this, and that is that that only 1 in every 100 ventures get investment, which is also, and that's not a Startup Istanbul statistic, that's a global investment statistic. So when I say investment, that's angel or venture funding. That's not friends and family or other types of more simple funding or bank funding or something like that. But angel investor funding, only 1% of companies get that. So again, if our business plan is built around us getting angel or venture funding, it's a 1 in 100 chance. And so do we want to rest our business plan based on that? Or should we have a plan if we don't get funding? Or a plan to bootstrap until we can make it to getting a place to where we're getting funding? So these are things we want to sort of talk about and think about. So let's kind of open it up a little bit. And I really want to get your thoughts here. So again, it's kind of two realities. One is there's only going to be one winner out of 100, and only 1 out of 100 are going to get funding. So how else do you win here? What other good outcomes can there be that will make this event a success for you? So please. So marketing help to know more about how to market your company? Oh. So the exposure, the idea that being here will help in terms of connecting your company to the marketplace. Yeah, and that's a great point. And we'll all get videos. All the pitches are going to be recorded, so you'll have that product at the end of this. So smile, wear good clothes, all those kinds of things. Brush your teeth. Yeah, great point. So getting exposure, yes. So the idea is you have a better chance of in the networking to, yeah. Exactly. But it's how you define winning, right? So yeah. So using the networking time to effectively connect with investors or any type of market relationship. Yeah. What else? What else defines a win? What else would make it successful for you? I'll sit down. Yeah, please. Mm-hmm. So to make revenue, to drive revenue, to create sales. So yeah, the whole goal to build your business through selling. Yeah, absolutely. Love it. Love it. What else? What other makes success? Yes. I'm sorry, I didn't understand. Is somebody is somebody losing? Well, I think again, any of us can go home disappointed, right? But it's how you define your expectation. If you're solely defining your expectation by getting first in this event on Monday evening, then everybody but one person will go home unhappy. So, right. But so I'm asking if you go beyond that, how are you defining success? So the idea is another way to define this is by how you expand your business geographically. Yeah. Okay. Cool. I love it. Yes. Mm. Yep. Yeah. Yep. I love it. Yeah, so the idea of getting more feedback in a very condensed time frame so that you can continue to evolve your idea. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, all sorts of feedback. Any other thoughts, in terms of how you define success here? Anyone? Yeah, please. If you're satisfied, yeah. So what would make you satisfied? What is successful for you here?
ايش؟
Yep.
Okay. What do you mean with the satisfaction?
Yeah, in terms of on Tuesday when
Well,
you're reflecting on
if
this
your
event.
team and your stakeholders and you is satisfied, okay, this is the winning.
Yep.
Actually.
So helping your stakeholders.
How?
So you're saying if you develop connections here or meet people here that help your stakeholders, then it's successful?
Yeah.
Okay, that's great. No, thank you. Yes? To follow your passion. So, but how will that make you successful here?
It will make myself successful.
You'll feel better
Exactly.
by following your passion.
By following my passion, by doing something that I believe in.
Yep, and that's something that's making the impact
Exactly.
that you want? Okay.
It's about the impact.
I like it. Okay, cool. Yes, sir. Well, you're. I like that. Yes, yes. So we can just go have some beer. I like the way you think. It's almost 10 o'clock in the morning. It's a good time to start. So the idea is we're already here, and that is already success. We've in probably a few forms, right? One is we're one of 90,000 applicants, and one of only 100 or actually 70 companies that are here that came through that process. Maybe the other is we've also committed to come here, which is another major decision, right? It's an investment in yourself and your venture. Those are all big things, the investment being time and money, which are really the only two resources we have, right? Time and money. So good. Anything else? Yes, sir. You got speak up. Knowledge transfer, yeah. So the connections, the feedback, all of that knowledge transfer, it's great stuff. Cool. I saw one more hand. Anyone? Anyone? Oh, one over here. Yeah, the mic guy is just going to go nuts. Yeah, go ahead. Yell. So what do you mean by that? Reaching 100% of your targets. What do you mean? You got to speak louder. I'm sorry. Yeah. So how is this event helping you reach 100% of your targets? Okay, by making connections to do that? Yeah, okay, great, excellent. So that's good. So again, the real point, and each of us will define success uniquely, but the real point is to sort of look beyond the couple of metrics that are fairly normal. One is, did I get a trophy at the end of this? The trophy you already have, right? I think we've shared that. And the other is, did I get investment? And Barack yesterday said nobody walks out with bags of money, number one. But number two is the percentages aren't very good around getting venture or angel funding. So if that's the sum total of your plan, then there might be a problem, and we need to rethink that. So I'm gonna share some ideas about what we might want to do to continue to sort of evolve our plan and maybe make sure that, number one, whether or not there's investment, we have a strong business, but also these are things that will only make you stronger if investment makes sense. So the next topic here is bread. Any thoughts about what I mean by bread? So in the US, where I'm from, bread is a word that has many meanings. And of course, we think about the bread we eat, which should look like this, right? But it also actually has, there we go. It's also a word that also means money. And so you talk about, sort of bread in terms of what you earn. And so the idea here is that when we, as companies, what we end up doing quite often is we have an idea, and then we might look to get feedback. We might go out and do a survey or whatnot, and we take that as validation for our idea, and that causes us to make maybe an MVP, a simple version of our product, and then we maybe go to market with it and so on. I see a lot of people spending lots and lots of time on their idea before they spend very much time at all with customers, which is dangerous. Has anyone done this where they spend lots and lots of time on their idea before they go out and try to sell? I've talked to many people here that have. I mean, we all have, right? I won't out you. You don't have to raise your hand. It's okay. But the challenge here is that when you're doing a survey, when you're trying to find out if your idea is good, what's the only survey that matters? There's really only one. Yeah, well, what's the best customer survey? So it's a right idea. The customer is the only one that can give you good feedback. But what's the only way to assure that what they're telling you isn't a false positive? What they, when they pay for it. Yet when they give you bread is the only way to know. Because, right, they want to make you feel good. Nobody wants to hurt your feelings, right? That if you ask them, do you like my idea for this travel app? Do you like my idea for this cleaning home service or anything? They'll say, oh, yes, it's wonderful, it's wonderful. Well, great, do you want to buy it? And they'll, no. That's very normal. And so we tend to get a lot of false positives. It's like going home and asking your mother, is my idea good? You know, mom goes, yes, it's a great idea. Get out, you know, go play in the other room. So you have to be careful about sort of the information you trust. It's not that they're trying to be evil, right? They don't want to make you do all this extra work for no benefit. They're trying to support you. They're trying to help you, but they don't realize that it's not helping you at all because you're going to go underground, you'll go in the basement for 6 months or 12 months, and you'll build this thing expecting that there's a market for it. So today what we end up seeing on college campuses, we see it in ecosystems all over the world, is there are a lot of solutions, a lot of products looking for problems. That's not very good, right? And we want to have problems that desperately need solutions. You want to have customers that desperately need you, right? They'll stand in line, they'll deal with products that don't work exactly right in order for you to get to a place where you have a good product and a great product as you can evolve. So we've kind of reversed, and it's funny because there's all this sort of entrepreneurship methodology that when it came out, everybody goes, this is brilliant, the idea of putting the customer first and then customer discovery, and then we begin making small, light products, and then we ask them for money and so on. And everybody read that and they go, this is smart, but nobody does it, right? We go, oh no, because I'm an engineer, I like building stuff. And I'm not going to be happy. You know, my German friends, they'll know this, right? I'm not going to launch it until it's absolutely perfect, right? And we can't do that. And so what happens is you go, you know, and then you go out and it's perfect according to you, but nobody wants it. And and it's not perfect from their perspective. It's got too many features. It's complicated. So here's what we want to do. We want to get you focused on what revenue provides. And there are several things that revenue provides. So first is fuel, right? Everybody here, how many people here want investment? Yeah, be honest, please. Yeah, so what's the best form of investment? Customers paying you money. Why would that be? Why is it better to get customer dollars than investor dollars? And I'm not disparaging investors. That's not my point here. But you're not going to share, right? You own that revenue. Absolutely. Yes, sir. It's validation. It's the only indication that matters, because that's the only way you know that the information that the customer is telling you is sincere. And again, not that they want to lie to you. Yes. Steady cash flow. Yeah, absolutely. Yes, sir. I'm sorry. Oh, KPI. It's a great KPI. Yeah, I'm sorry. The acoustics and my hearing and sorry, but thank you. Yes, it's a KPI. It's a key performance indicator. Really important. What else? What else about cash, about customers is fuel? You know how poorly people spend money they're given versus money they earn? The decisions you make, if I gave you $10,000 today versus you earning $10,000 that you had to work nights and weekends to get, how different are your decisions? You're going to conserve the cash you make much differently than you're going to spend the cash that you're given. And there are different, we have different levels, all of us, of experience with this and maturity, but I see this happen all the time. The decisions people make when they're given money, they go out and buy office furniture, they go out and do all sorts of things that if it were their money, if they had earned it, if they had worked nights and weekends and 80 hours a week and all those types of things, they'd be sitting on milk crates and working on cardboard. They wouldn't care. But because they're given money, they get artwork for their offices or something goofy like that. So validation. Somebody said validation. Yeah, absolutely. It's a reinforcement that we're on the right path. And again, it's the only form of feedback that we can really rely on. Customer engagement. So when customers invest in your business, they're going to be invested in giving you feedback as you go along. One of the actually really interesting programs that I've seen recently, there's a hospital in Boston in the US. It's called Brigham and Women's Hospital. Boy, it's hard to say. Brigham and Women's Hospital. It's Harvard University's teaching hospital. And they do an event called Pilot Shark Tank. And at this event, like normal pitch events, like you'll do here, everybody stands up and they pitch. They give their 3 or 5 minute pitch or whatever. And the panel, instead of being investors, the panel are physicians who would potentially pilot, who would use that product, that technology or that service in their practice. And so at the end of it, think about the value for entrepreneurs at the end of that, right? The entrepreneur has a new customer, it's revenue, plus it's one of the most reputable hospital teaching schools in the world. Now that physician is going to give you feedback. They may give you testimonials if they like it, all those types of things, the credibility that can come from that. So customers, that revenue, that whatever is dollars or Deutschmarks or Turkish lira, whatever the form of revenue is, that is so much more valuable than this equal amount of money from an investor because of all of the things that come along with it and all the things that you can get from it. You know, one of the things that I never see talked about, and the next bullet is around team confidence. So as a startup, your team is together. Think of it like an hourglass with sand. If you kept everything else the same, your team is together for a very finite amount of time. Most teams, without success, will stay together 1 or 2 years, and then they evaporate into thin air, just like they started. They evaporate. And so one of the only things that keeps the team together is when you start to create sales. Unless you're in like a medical device where it's 6 or 8 years to get something to market, the rest of us can earn revenue usually very early, within the first month or 2 or 3 or 4 months. But getting our team together and keeping everybody together, revenue plays a big part in that. It builds team confidence, it builds their commitment, it starts showing success, which gets people to work harder and work together more, so it also reinforces that. And for those that are still convinced that they have to have investment, the only way to de-risk investment for an investor is generally through revenue. Why? Because of all the things we've said. It validates the idea. It gives the investor confidence. Think about it from the investor standpoint. They have many, many choices of how to invest their money. It's their money, right? They make the decision on where the money goes. So if your business is competing against, thousands of other businesses for an investor's $100,000 or $200,000 or $1 million, then you need to be more attractive. In other words, you need to give them a vision of a bigger potential return with less risk. It's very simple what they're looking for. They're like the most simple people to understand. More return, less risk. And so revenue is proof that several things. One is that your product is validated, but also that you have an intimacy with your customer, that you're learning about your customer, that you're having regular daily conversations with customers, which is really what they want to hear. Because the thing that investors, more often than not, the biggest criteria that they have in terms of making a decision whether or not to invest is in the team. And it's partly about the quality of the team, but more of that is about how flexible the team is, how much the team listens, how coachable they are, and how they are able to learn from their customers. Because the one thing that most investors are confident in is whatever you show them today for a product isn't the final product. Whatever you show them, the right companies will know how to listen to their customers and continue to evolve their product. And it may even be that they go into a different business because of what they learn from their customers. And that's the confidence that the investors show in the team. So being able to bring the risk or the sense of risk down for investors is built based, at least in part, on how much intimacy, how much commitment you have from your customers. And revenue or cash is the best way to show commitment. So questions or thoughts on this before we move on? Okay, cool. All right, so the next one is about tribe, and tribes are kind of it's now sort of almost a marketing term. We use it to build community, but it's really about how do we grow the people who are advocating for us. And so let's talk a little bit about this. So we have, we want people cheering for us. We want people on our side. We want all of those kinds of things that having a good tribe brings. And ultimately, we start in big rooms like this, but where the connections are really made are when we get together with people more intimately, when we get together with them one-on-one and we have conversations where we understand what creates success for them, we understand what their challenges are, and then they learn those things from us, and we find where we have commonality, where we have ways to develop success together. And those are the keys. And ultimately, from these events, the most important thing is not how many business cards you go home with most people. It's sort of a vanity metric, right? I have this big stack of cards. That doesn't mean anything. It's how many people did you actually connect with, and how many will you connect with after to have maybe a Skype call or other types of communication. But it's the continuance that happens from all of this. So let's talk about building a circle of advocates, and ultimately. It's been mentioned a few times here. Part of the reason to do this is so that you get feedback. And the more that people are invested in you, the more that, I think there are a lot of, yesterday, many of us met for the first time on the boat ride. And so we have a little bit of investment in each other. But imagine if we had lunch together or dinner together or, spend a little bit more time together. We invest in each other just a little bit more. And ultimately, that's what creates these advocates, and the more sort of invested we are in each other, the more we might give hard feedback, which, all of us want to hear good things, but if we hear good things and it's pushing us the wrong direction, that's not really a good thing, right? So sometimes you have to be okay with hearing whatever the truth is, whatever the hard feedback is. So being open to that is key, and ultimately, one thing to remember is, and this is actually one thing that I see a lot of young companies or younger entrepreneurs having challenges with, is it's up to you to sort of figure out. You'll get feedback sometime that's conflicting, that tells you, this person says X, this person says Y. And it takes a little bit to sort of, how do I figure out how to reconcile these? Because they're saying opposite things, and I can't do both. So one of the things you have to do as an entrepreneur is learn and feel comfortable with, number one, getting feedback. Artists get this all the time, right? People who are artists they actually have critiquing as a very normal part of artwork. They actually get fairly aggressive at telling each other what they don't like about each other's artwork. Entrepreneurs, we protect our babies, right? No, my baby is beautiful, and I believe in my baby, whatever it is. But understand that it's up to you to filter that feedback and use what you think is appropriate and throw out what you don't think is appropriate. Nobody after this is going to say, why didn't you do what I suggested? It's up to you to sort of decide what makes the most sense. So utilize the tools, utilize the resources. The other big thing in making these connections here is about the idea of connectors. So you're going to meet people here that have networks that will be helpful for you to connect to. It could be that maybe they have connections to customers, which some have mentioned that they would like to build their businesses, build revenue. So leveraging that. There may be some that have connection to resources like attorneys that can help solve certain problems. And I've talked to some people who are looking for those kinds of connections. Again, investors or whatnot. But when you're with people, really try to understand where they fit in terms of the things that you're trying to do or the people that you know. Maybe and I'm not sure if this translates, and I apologize. Does anyone here know the game? There's a children's game. It's called Memory. Do you know that game? So what's the game? What's the point of the game? Correct. So the game is very simple. It's you have a deck of 52 cards, and you put them individually down, face down on a table, and you flip over two at a time. And you get points by flipping over two that are the same, so 2 7s, 2 8s, 2 whatever. And so the first many times that you flip over, you don't make matches because you don't know the layout of the cards, because you have to flip the cards back over if they don't match. And so by the 5th or 6th or 7th or 8th time, you can begin making matches. That's a lot of how networking works. When you walk into a new room full of people, you don't know anybody. You don't know the relationships. You don't know the skills, the backgrounds. And so when you think about it, you know, you sort of meet someone, you meet someone over there, and by the 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th person, you go, oh, have you met? And let me take you across the room and introduce you. That's really the power here. So you're going to run into people that might fit your world, but may also fit somebody that you were talking to yesterday. And the more that you can make those connections, you get what's called goodwill. You get people saying good things about you. And what happens when you have goodwill is when you need something, people are more likely to say, let me help you make that connection you need because you have invested in me or you've invested in people I know. And that it's really one of the most powerful things in your business. It's not only personally powerful, you can change your own trajectory by those relationships, but also your business. And so often, if you can stand in a shorter line or you can get access that isn't easy, often it's driven by the relationships and how you care for other people. So making sure that, you know, not only are you leveraging connections that you meet here, but also that you're a good connector is really what fuels the process. You know, if you're just taking, it's not very good, right? We have to also serve. And it actually usually, like the bank, right? We have to put money in before we take money out. So it works a lot like that. So think about that. So next is strategic partners. Again, the idea being here we have opportunities to meet all sorts of people. We might meet people who can help us from a distribution standpoint or any other standpoint like that. And then customers, others have mentioned customers. Yeah, we want to make all these connections. It's really important. And then investors. We have all of these different good connections. But you know, the cool thing is any one of these can connect us to the others. So leveraging these relationships can be really, really powerful. And ultimately can fuel us in many different directions. So this is actually, this next slide is the one I really want to spend some time on, because events like this are incredibly powerful, but in 3 days this is over. So it's, you know, it's sort of how do we take advantage of it now? How are we present? It's difficult because each of us has so many other distractions. We have other things that are going on, and being sort of connected into this moment and taking the most advantage of it, it might mean, you know, making, you know, longer evenings. It may mean getting up a little bit earlier in the morning, but making sure that when we're here, we can actually connect into all the possibilities that are here. And it's easy to not do that. So some of the things, and just to give you a little bit of my connection here, is I've been involved in Startup Istanbul and Startup Turkey, the Home products, for I think about 4 years now, something like that. And so I've been to all those events for that period of time. And so I've sat in on now probably certainly hundreds and possibly 1,000 or so mentor sessions through this community. And this really the same habits repeat themselves. I literally just came from an event in Boston in the U.S. that was pretty much the same thing. This is better for sure. But it was 100 startups that had been, it was called Startup of the Year, and it was this competition to sort of choose the best startup. And it was a similar format, mentor sessions and all that kind of good stuff. But there are some things that I think might help in terms of how do we use this, because we're communicating all the time. And so the being present, and it's something that I see fairly rarely now, but when people go into, you know, if you're going into a mentor meeting, or maybe you're going into to practice your pitch and you've found somebody that will listen and you go into a corner to do that, the normal thing is somebody will just share their pitch and there are 2 other team members watching the person pitch, and the mentor or mentors are giving feedback, and you know, everybody's just sort of sitting there sort of watching it happen. And the team members don't have paper or pen out or pencil. And so why is it important to take notes when you're getting feedback from a mentor in any respect? Yes? Yeah, so the idea that we're all going to see different things and we can take those notes and then compare our notes later to see the whole picture. Absolutely one. But my normal is to see not even one person taking notes. That's very normal, like 99 out of 100. If I didn't say something, nobody would take notes. And so we actually now start mentor sessions with, where's your paper? It's never fun, but I'm direct, I'm sorry. So why else do we want to take notes? Why else, besides remembering, they might say something valuable, why else might we want to take notes? Say that again? To remember what they say, absolutely. But why else, besides remembering? Yes? Yep. Okay, so to be able to process it, but taking the notes so that we can remember the moment. All right, there's one big point we're missing here. You have a question, so you want to write down and not forget the question, and you don't want to interrupt, for sure. Yep. You're communicating. Thank you. Yeah, when you take notes, you're showing the people across from you that what you're saying is you're taking it seriously, that it's important. And so, we communicate 100% of the time we are around people, whether we're speaking or not. Our communication is there. And so when we talk about being here in the moment, that's huge evidence that we're actively participating when people see us taking notes. So doing it on paper is a lot different than if you're doing it on your phone. Why? You feel it. Why? We assume you're chatting. Absolutely right. Yeah, what? Because we don't know. We're just adults. We have no idea what's going on. Yeah, exactly. We assume you're chatting. No doubt about it. Yeah, so that's the way to remove any suspicion. You're not chatting if you're writing on paper. We know that for sure. Yeah, so here's an interesting question. So based on what we just talked about, when does your pitch start? It already started, right? When you wake up, it starts. Well, that's a little bit early, but okay, well, we'll go with that. You look in the mirror, you say, I feel good, I feel great, smile, put the thumbs up. So yeah, your pitch starts when you could stretch this, but when you enter the room, it stretches, it's as soon as people begin getting exposure to you, you're pitching. And it's not, the point isn't that you're convincing people, you're selling, or any of that kind of stuff, but you're giving them evidence of who you are, what you do, how serious you're taking this. All of that is a key variable. Because if they see you and your team walking around the room together, what would an investor think? This is it's a gang. It's a good team. Well, I'm going to argue that, but okay. What other thoughts? Yeah. They don't have trust. So if I were an investor, what I would think is when they go to a room that's not here, they're all going to walk around together, which means they're only going to meet one person times the number of people they meet. If there are 3 or 4 or 5 of them and they separate, they're going to meet 3 or 4 or 5 times the number of people. That's leverage. If they're walking around all together, it's very limiting, and it means they're all very dependent. You want to show that your team is independent, that you're capable of connecting with many people in the room and having great discussions and really leveraging, because they want you to sell stuff, right? And you're going to sell a lot less stuff if you're all together. You want to separate and connect and do all that. So the things that you can do to give evidence of who you are, and imagine if through the course of an event, they meet one team member, and then that same person meets, later on in the day, they need to meet another team member, and their understanding of your company increases, and their commitment to your company and their sense of being an advocate changes. And then maybe the next day they meet a third person, and again, their understanding of what you do changes and improves. And each of those times when they're later on evaluating, oh, I need to know more about them, I need to schedule a meeting. And it'll be because they've had multiple interactions with multiple people that have given them really good impressions. So you can really leverage this by making sure that as team members come, they're confident and capable of having a lot of different discussions so that you can really move this forward. So here are just kind of the quick thoughts. So you want to first separate. So as a team, you want to be prepared to separate and to be able to go and have conversations. So it was, people yesterday, it was easy to see when people were together because some people are wearing sort of team shirts and stuff, and you go, oh, they're all standing together. But, on the other hand, when you see them separate, it's so powerful because you see, the leverage. There are 4 different conversations going on with all people in the same team, which is really, really powerful. The second thing you want to make sure you do is, besides separating, then engage. You want to, instead of sitting, you want to stand during the networking time. You want to be able to move around and make connections. Take notes, we talked about. Ask questions. So the normal thing is, when an investor or a mentor says, hey, tell me about what you do, you kind of, within a few, 20 minutes, you're going, wow, I wonder when they're going to end. So it should be a dialogue. You want to make sure that your statement about what you do is like 10 seconds or 20 seconds. Allow them to step into your conversation so that you're now going back and forth, where they can ask you questions, you can ask them questions. So what questions might you ask somebody here or who's going to be here on Monday about themselves? What would you ask somebody who is asking you about your business after you share 10 seconds about what you do? So what question might you ask somebody who comes up to you in an event? So they've asked you about your business, and you tell them, you give them 10 seconds. Here's what we do, maybe 20 seconds. What would you ask them? What did they just ask you? They asked you what you do. What would you ask them? Good job. Yes, you ask them what they do. What's their interest in coming here? What's their sign? No, you don't ask them that. That's bad. So yeah, you want to find out what's their motivation. If they're an investor, what types of companies do you invest in? Yeah, what makes you not invest in a company? Learn, because everything that you can learn becomes an opportunity for you to, whether it's to find connection with them or to help connect them. It's either one, but you can't do any of that unless you learn. If you're just talking, you learn nothing, right? That's not very good leverage. Yes? Maybe you need the keys of the conversation? So what do you mean by that? Yep. Right, so what types of investments do they do? Any of those kinds of things that help you learn about what they're looking for, what their background is, and so on. Absolutely. The last thing that's really key here, I'm sorry, go ahead. So the response was, or the idea is that you can go and search all of this information on the internet to find out about somebody. Yeah, you can, but unfortunately, that's not dialogue, right? We're going to build relationship when we talk. So you might use that as to say, hey, I read a little bit about you, which might sound like you're a stalker, but so you have to be careful with that. But here, I know a little, you are the executive vice president of whatever, or the managing partner of whatever, but the relationship happens when we talk. It's not being on LinkedIn, right? So I think you want, yes, but you want to make sure that you're investing in the conversation. Again, this isn't about us just throwing up on somebody and giving them our spiel. We want a dialogue. So make sure, and again, you want to follow up. So the last bullet here in our list is options. And all of this that we've talked about leads to options. If we have revenue, what do we have? We have options, right? If right now, if you don't have revenue and you're coming here looking for investment, you have no other option, right? If you have no revenue, you have to have investment, or you better quickly find revenue, or your team begins to go to greener pastures. They're going to find something else to do, and that's bad. You don't want that to happen. So we want to make sure that we look at options. So if you have one road, this is the view. You want to make sure that your view is different, right? You want to see all different types of possibilities. So if you know, it's amazing. I've seen some really bad businesses with great cash flow. In other words, they have customers paying them money every day. They can do lots of things. They now can invest in things that improve whatever systems aren't right, whatever isn't working. They can hire better people, whatever the case is. I've seen a lot of really, what seem like really good products fail because they don't understand that revenue creation is what gives them choices. And I know there are some social enterprises here, I talked to a few yesterday, and this is, I talked to so many social enterprises that are so focused on doing good that they miss the idea that they need to be sustainable. You will fail miserably in doing good if you're not here next year. The first job you have is to be here next year, and that means you need, and every funder you go to at some point will say you need to stand on your own 2 feet. And that means you need to find earned income. You need to find a way to be sustainable. And so, I sound like the sort of the heretic here in the room, but revenue is going to give you options that you otherwise wouldn't have. It's a really important key to all of this. So developing the relationships that we talked about, making the connections, all of those things give you options that you don't have. But the reinforcement I got about this topic, I started a business with a guy who's taken a couple of companies to the Inc. 500 list, and that was his whole focus in the company we built, was how do we develop a situation where whatever happens, we have a good solution. We have a road that we can choose that is in our favor, as opposed to, right now, if your only source of having sustenance is through investment, you don't have any choices. But the more you can build choices, the more you can build a business that you're in control of, that you're able to grow, and that you ultimately feel pride in getting somewhere that is really useful. So I have just a quick, so these are the quick points. So if we go with each of these, we want to go from winning to success. We start with winning, we want to go to success. We want to go from bread to revenue, look at how to drive that. Tribe, we want to drive to being advocates, now to being present, and then finally options to building a valuable business. And so it was building a valuable business. So there were all sorts of comments when we were doing the webinars where people said, how do I do well in startup Istanbul? I don't have revenue yet, and how do I compete against companies that have revenue? And I would just suggest that the measure that you need to have is, if you have a valuable business, do you need to worry about winning Startup Istanbul? Is that important anymore? If your business is valuable, Startup Istanbul is less important, right? You're much more likely to win it when it's less important, because it's been a while since I've dated, but when I was dating, I spent a lot of time wanting to have a date, and I didn't have many dates. When I started to work on myself to be valuable, and my wife would still argue if I've actually become valuable, but the point really is when you're focused on being valuable, and when you become valuable, suddenly you're much more attractive. When you want a date, or when you want investment, or you, even worse, need it, you're much less attractive. My first finance professor, who was phenomenal, always taught us that the best time to ask for money is when you don't need it, because you're most attractive then. You're less risky. So again, think about this when you're thinking about getting investment, or how do we attract investment. The best is when you don't need it. I have a good friend who just exited a business just a few months ago. He's 40 years old. He started this business 3 years ago. He sold it for enough money that he never has to work again. He did pretty well in 3 years, right? It's not bad. And the funny thing was, he never took investment, and after the first year, he would get a call from an investor that he didn't know once a week, people asking him, can I invest in your company? Why would they do that? Why would they call him? Because they saw he was making lots of money. They saw they could actually probably get a good rate of return. They could multiply their money by 10 or 15 or 20 times. So that's what they want. If you're investable, investors find you. You don't have to worry about it. And just like if you're dateable, you don't have to worry about it. Whoever you're trying to attract will find you. So stop worrying about it. Focus on building a valuable business. The rest takes care of itself. The rest is actually kind of easy. The world sort of happens to do that. So one bonus thought. Okay, so how many people like pancakes? Come on, yeah, who can't like pancakes? So yeah, so when you cook pancakes, what's that like? What's the first pancake? Is it the same as all the rest? It's the worst. They're terrible, right? I mean, it doesn't even look like a pancake. It's partially cooked. It's not very good. Yeah, so, and these events are a lot the same way. So we're all at different stages. We're all, some can stand up here and you'll give you your 2 minutes and it'll be easy. Others it'll be nerve-wracking and maybe difficult. But wherever you are, it's just think of it like the first pancake. You can't get to a second pancake, unfortunately. I've tried many, many times to cook the second pancake first. It doesn't work. I have to cook the first pancake, it's bad, and then the second pancake comes. And it's beautiful. So it's the same thing when you stand up here. It'll be what it will be. The next time it'll be better, and it's okay. Don't worry about standing up here or maybe a conversation you'll have with an investor, because that may be a first experience, and that's okay too. It won't be perfect. It's okay. But guess what? The next time it'll be better. And so each time you put the batter on the griddle, it's good. So just use these experiences to just put the batter on the griddle and move it forward. It gets easier, and you do it the more often you do it. But just throw out the first pancake. It's no problem. You'll stand up here, take the advantage of standing up here this afternoon when we do the practicing. That's really valuable. And then, take all these opportunities to just do it more times. And by the time you've had a couple of experiences, it just gets easier and easier. So thank you all. It's been my pleasure. I'm going to turn it back over to the MC, me. It's been great, though. Thank you. I'm going to bring up our next speaker.